Hello and welcome back to the We Are Careers show, and I hope you're having a great week wherever you are in the career sphere. I'm Chris Webb. I'm a higher education career consultant and member of the CDI, and I'm joined as always by my fantastic co-host, Meet Sabir. So Sabir, are you having a good week this week?
Do you know what? It actually has been a really great week. I've been on quite a few campuses, being able to appreciate graduation ceremonies, but that's not what we're going to be talking about here today, folks, because actually we're taking a whole different perspective on education, aren't we? And this is a reminder of what the show is all about. For those of you that are watching this very first time, this is a reminder that We Are Career Show is a fortnightly go-to career show for career professionals working within the UK market and beyond. If you're someone like me who works internationally, who want to improve and enhance your continuous professional development by finding out about the latest issues that are impacting the career development sector. Now, each show, we're going to bring you the latest updates in the sector to keep you well informed. Plus, we'll bring you an inspirational guest, and we've got a great one today based on topics that matter to you. Now, the aim is simple. It's about connecting and building a strong community of career professionals so that we can serve our clients in the best possible way. Now, for those of you that don't know me, I'm known as Meet Sabiha, and I work with international clients trying to land their dream UK opportunities without the struggle and helping them to thrive. Now, as always, we've got Chris Webb here, who is my co host. Who have we got coming up today, Chris?
Thanks, Sabir. Yeah, we've got a topic today that I think is always on the lips of careers professionals, and that is apprenticeships, and perhaps even more so with a new government in post and talks about reform of the apprenticeship levy and all these sorts of things. Now, I think you'd probably be hard pushed to find anybody or not find a consensus who say that kind of apprenticeships are a good thing, you know, quote unquote. But I guess kind of when it comes to the actual lived experience of apprentices, you know, do we always kind of really know what's going on? And this is exactly why we have the guest in today who we've invited to the virtual studio, and that is Romario Ellis, CEO and founder of OuterCircle. So Romario, very warm welcome to the podcast. A quick intro for the viewers and listeners, if you don't mind.
Yeah, more than happy to. Again, hi everyone. Thank you, Sabia and Chris, for the kind introduction. Again, my name is Romario Ellis. I'm a former degree apprentice. So I was doing that for the past 2 years of my life. Now working full-time on my business, OuterCircle, where, putting it simple, our goal is to help support the next and current generation of apprentices to thrive and navigate their way through the difficult, at times, apprenticeship landscape.
Love that.
Fantastic.
I love the work that you're doing, Romario. And honestly, I recently had a conversation with somebody who was in the boat of deciding whether or not to go to university and whether or not apprenticeship. And there was a lot of stigma attached to the apprenticeship route, both by the parents as well as the individual as well. So I'm really excited of getting into this. And if anybody else is excited as I am as well, make sure you sort of kind of listen till the end, because Romario's got some great insights and his personal journey story as well. Now, previously viewers will and listeners will remember of the show that we do this segment called Careers Cheers, where every show we celebrate innovative and inspiring members of the careers community, or it's simply giving a shout out to something positive that's happened in the careers world since our previous show. So, Romario, let's start with you first. What is or who is your Careers Cheers for the week?
Is it okay if I have two? Because I've got two off the top of my head. So the first one
100%.
to call, thank you. So the first one to call out is, again, this is not necessarily new news as such, but it is definitely something that's popped into my radar that I've been definitely getting excited about from the perspective of employers. Obviously, with the new parties coming into play, and they're looking to reform apprenticeships, as Chris as you called out, in terms of the apprenticeship levy, making it more flexible for employers to invest in different parts of their apprenticeship scheme and the apprenticeship landscape. From my perspective personally, of being on that ground level of working with students now, working with employers now, it's really, really important to have that flexibility. So it was something that kind of made me smile, in all honesty, that the government is being more aware and more conscious of what investment to different areas of apprenticeships can really offer, in all honesty. And the second thing is, I think, just more in a general concept, not anyone in particular, but there's a lot of people now being a lot more open and honest about the realities of apprenticeships, which I really love. There was a student I saw recently on LinkedIn who was just sharing her experience of applying to apprenticeships, and if you know, if anyone is watching this who knows, it's quite challenging. In all honesty, it is quite challenging to go through that whole process. Again, very, very rigorous. So it's really, really great to see that a lot of people are giving more insight and context to it, because often it is quite glamorized in the sense of that journey and getting into one as well. So those are my 2 main points.
I love those 2 points, and really valuable because they're both coming at it from two very different perspectives. So thank you so much, Romario, for sharing that. Chris, how about you? Who and or what have you picked for this week?
Well, I feel like mine's quite selfish now, having listened to Romario. So, yeah, mine's kind of very personal, I guess, and it's a bit of a shout out to the rest of my kind of cohort from the CMI certificate in professional coaching practice, which I did last year through the university where I work, and we finally got our graduation. So we actually completed the course kind of about a year ago now, and we're actually graduating this afternoon. So it's a big shout out to everyone that did that sort of cohort. Quite a different group of people, like some from kind of HR background, some academics, some professional services staff. We did it all online, and it was really, really engaging. Quite surprising for a fully online thing, in my experience. So yeah, big shout out to them, everyone who's kind of graduating today, and other graduates all across the country.
Yeah. Oh, and congratulations. Do you know what, Chris? Actually, I commend you for picking this as a feel good story. And anybody else who's maybe celebrating some form of graduation or some kind of completion of a program of self study or professional development, good for you. I think all too often we don't celebrate, we don't take a moment to just go, hang on a second, I've just done something really amazing or really cool. So well done to everybody who, as Chris said, has graduated, as well as maybe you've graduated from a master's or an undergrad as well. So my sort of feel good cheers story this week is really going to align with what we're talking about here today. Now, I'm currently on tour, on a UK wide tour at the moment. Working with sort of kind of international professionals. However, who I want to actually give a shout out to, because he's been popping up on my feed, because I believe he's also on a tour at the moment around the UK as well, is Mr. Ben Rowland. Now, some of you might go, why does that name sound familiar? It will be because Ben Rowland is a leading expert and advisor on apprenticeships and post school options. He also happens to be the author of Understanding Apprenticeships, a student's guide, published by Trotman Indigo Publishing House as well. So if you haven't already had a chance to read this book, I would definitely recommend it. It's on my bookshelf at home as we speak right now, and it really ties in with what we're going to be exploring here today as well. So well done to Ben and his team. Because Ben is also the CEO of the Association of Employment and Learning Providers. And if you've not come across him, I highly recommend that you Google him or find him on LinkedIn, and you'll be able to access his content and his support that he provides. So having said that, Chris, shall we dive into today's podcast?
I think we should, and yeah, a really good point about Ben Rowland particularly, because again, with the new government in, as kind of Romario's alluded to, there was a big speech yesterday to the whole of the education sector from Bridget Phillipson at the time of recording. This is going to go out later, and in that there wasn't that much mention of training providers, and of course Ben was very kind of quick on social media to point out, what a sizable percentage of apprenticeships are delivered by these independent training providers. So yeah, we really do need to make some noise about that. So very, very good reference, and a lovely segue into the topic of today's show. So we're talking all about apprenticeships, and Romario, we know that there are lots of organizations out there that kind of promote, support, advocate on behalf of apprenticeships. But what you're doing with OuterCircle is a little bit different, isn't it? And I guess just to start with, it'd be really interesting to hear a bit more about, what are OuterCircle doing, and how does that kind of differ to some of the other organizations that are out there that work on the subject of apprenticeships?
100%. I mean, I can kick it off with why we started, and that theme of why we started really does align with what we're doing now. In honesty, I started OuterCircle simply as a community connecting other apprentices. Why? Because I wanted to meet other apprentices at the time. That was simply the reason as to why I wanted to do so, in an environment where you could feel like you could be yourself, not in a networking formal frenzy. It was more of a, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. Here's our lived and shared experiences that we can really align with together and really have a good time with each other, as well as, showcasing each other's experiences, as I mentioned before, but as well as our challenges, being around people, most young people go to university, most friends are in university from the perspective of apprentices. It's very hard to have that relation of, oh, I had a really bad day today. Yeah, I mean, can I get some advice from you? Honestly, your friends are not necessarily going to going to understand that experience and perspective. So you can often feel quite lonely, and I felt very much the same way when I was 17, 18 in my apprenticeship in my first 1 or 2 years. So I wanted to be around people of a like-minded nature. I think that was really, really, really important. And I just felt like having an organization that is run by people who are in that seat, who are who are in the driving seat of that experience. As again, from the start to where we are now, where we're branched out to more than just current apprentices, but us also aspiring apprentices, where we're helping to support them along that journey. And that journey is a journey that we've also traveled as well. My perspective of going along that, again, very rigorous, very challenging journey is something that a lot of people go through, and a lot of people go through a lot of challenges, a lot of frustration, a lot of feeling very overwhelmed as well. So it was, how can we give back? How can we give back to the experiences that we've experienced? And obviously now going into the apprenticeship and having an amazing experience through that, is also how can we give back to those who are maybe a year, 2, 3 years behind us, or who are of a similar age to us, but are finding it challenging and difficult to navigate that journey, when in all honesty the support isn't there. The support isn't there in terms of like clear cut, here's what you need to do, here's that support, here's all these different types of things really, really set up whether an apprentice and the student is going to have a great experience within an apprenticeship, and even getting into one can really change whether or not they're going to continue with that process or not. So it was again, it was really going to that point of why did we create OuterCircle? It was from that perspective of being for apprentices, by apprentices, and helping to give back to those who are going through that journey right now.
Yeah, and it's a great point about the challenges we're definitely going to revisit, I think, a little bit kind of later on. But sort of coming back to what you were saying about that idea of, being by apprentices, for apprentices, and something a little bit different perhaps to what's typically been maybe, kind of promotion of apprenticeships in a more kind of big style way to break down the stigma, or really just to kind of advertise this is something that you can do. As you're saying, this is much more targeted, much more tailored towards the community, I guess, of apprentices, and recognition of what that's like. And tell us a bit more, I guess, about what that looks like then. You've talked about that idea of kind of community building and stuff that's maybe away from the typical networking, lukewarm coffee, handshake sort of thing. Tell us a little bit more about what that looks like with OuterCircle, I guess.
100%. Yes, again, thank you, Chris, for calling out community, because I believe community is so important, especially for young people. Being surrounded by the right people, again, going back to that like-minded aspect, I believe that through the events that we do, again, community, I believe community goes hand in hand also alongside with in-person activities, and really getting to know each other in person, because that is how for thousands of years we've been going about things, haven't we? Obviously lockdown did kind of cause a rift in terms of that social element, and it does cause a lot of challenges for a lot of young people in social anxiety and things of that sense. So it was, how can we mix a community that is also in person, and making sure that, again, those elements of social fun is added to personal and professional development. So the events we've done, I can give some insight into the events that we've done. We've done probably 60 events in total with the apprentice and the aspiring apprentice side. We've done events such as events from camping to a black tie gala for New Year's at Brentford Football Stadium, and then we've done the more formal events working with employers. So we've done an AI industry insight event with IBM. We've done mock interview workshops, and the list goes on. So very wide range of events that we do, but again, it's to really tailor these events to what the aspiring apprentices really need.
I'm loving the innovation, Romario, that you're talking about, that you're thinking outside of the box. You're not just thinking the sort of kind of standard sort of, sort of networking events of how people can learn, but also embrace the experiences. And, the thing that you talk about that resonates with me, and folks, those of you that are listening, that are watching, or either listening on Spotify or watching us on YouTube, is what Romario is sharing. Is that resonating with you? Because you've got clients, communities that you also feel that will benefit from the apprenticeship experience. Because I'm a huge advocate about building communities around you. I don't believe, there's this saying that goes, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, I believe it takes a village to help you navigate the complexities of your career as well, and which within that I include apprenticeships. So, this is just great that this piece of work is happening, and I'm sure that we'll make sure, folks, because maybe some of you are listening right now and you're going, how do we tap into what Romario is doing? How can we help our clients use the facilities? Well, stay tuned till the end, because we'll tell you how. However, the question that I want to ask Romario is this. through the work that you're doing with OuterCircle, you've connected with a wide range of different apprentices. What do you think are some of the common misconceptions individuals have about what life is like for apprentice, and what would you like to say to set the record straight?
So I shared on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago about the misconceptions about apprenticeships, especially something that's really a big wave of a big culture, I think, on social media, especially TikTok, has been produced from apprentices, obviously having a great experience through their apprenticeship working in the corporate world, whether it's law, finance, tech. You get to work in big, nice buildings, glossy buildings in Canary Wharf, as an example. But it's come out with, again, the bog standard of what social media is showcasing a lifestyle. It's not showcasing what you do, but it's showcasing a lifestyle. And that's kind of, fed its way into apprenticeships, in honesty. And that perspective of glamorizing and making apprenticeships a bit of a vanity lifestyle perspective isn't, in my opinion, in my honest opinion, in terms of giving career advice, because that is what a lot of people on there are sharing and giving the perspective to, isn't giving the full complexity, honesty, realism of what an apprenticeship is like, in honesty. So a big thing that I've been calling out is, and a lot of other apprentices around me within the community really do call out, that it's hard. It is very hard, in all honesty. There are amazing benefits, and we're not going to go into the benefits because a lot of people probably watching know the context of apprenticeships, and there are millions of benefits that we could go into 2-3 hours of this podcast, but I'm gonna give the difficulties and the misconceptions that are out there, in honesty, and that it is that integration of getting into an apprenticeship. Obviously, getting into one is very rigorous, very challenging, as I mentioned before. But even that point of, right, I've got an apprenticeship now, I've got a couple of months to relax and do whatever I want. That integration of your first month, second month, third month of an apprenticeship is, in all honesty, my personal opinion, and a lot of our community, is very challenging, very, very challenging. Going from school, going from college to the corporate world, the workforce, is very, very a massive change in your life and your lifestyle and who you surround yourself with, who you speak to. So that, in honesty, can be even more abrupt and even more overwhelming than going through that process of getting into one. So I definitely call it, it's those first couple of months of getting into an apprenticeship, and as well as that, it's then getting used to that balance of time management. You've got to work, you've got probably 4 days of work, and then you've got a day to study. And then if certain things carry over, because in all honesty, a 9 to 5 isn't always necessarily a 9 to 5. In all honesty, I've got people who on extreme end, some people who work in investment banking within my network, who work from probably 7 to 10 some days, and then for other apprentices who work in consultancy at other companies, when we work from 9 to 4. It really just depends, but it's gaining that context in terms of each apprentice's lifestyle is quite different, in all honesty. But that transition, I feel like everyone definitely goes through, just because of the fact that we've all gone to school, we've all had that experience. So that's a bit of an insight into the misconception.
I think it's such an important point about the transition. We talk about this quite a lot in the university sector in terms of the student to graduate transition, which obviously slightly kind of further on. But I think the point you've made there about the kind of the school to kind of apprentice transition for people making the switch at that age. We hear an awful lot, as you said, about application processes. You're absolutely right, I think, to identify that, extremely challenging, often coming across stuff that you've never seen up to that point, assessment centers, video interviews, psychometric tests, all those sorts of things. But I think the transition is really interesting because, as you say, it's something that there isn't really a way to prepare for. And I guess what you're also losing is that kind of peer group, that community that you have in the school, where a lot of stuff on tap, there's a lot of people surrounding you that you can ask for advice from, support from, just have a chat with. So I guess, how have you been trying to sort of bridge that gap with OuterCircle? What's that kind of looked like in terms of helping those maybe newer apprentices to not feel so isolated, I guess?
So I genuinely do believe it's through how can we support those apprentices with their personal and professional development goals, mission, objectives, because I think personal and professional development equal to your career success, in all honesty. And it's how can we support both? That's through obviously our social events. And I really do think that social events are really looked, not necessarily down upon, but they're looked as something that is secondary or third or fourth in terms of importance, but it is so important, genuinely so important. From my experiences of never having a social life through the first year of my apprenticeship, and honestly, and again, that has changed a lot. You've got a lot of networks and communities out there now through apprenticeships, but obviously with OuterCircle, what we're trying to support is, again, everyone. It's no matter what your background is, what your experience is, what your ethnicity, background, all of these different types of things. It's how can we get together, people coming from different backgrounds, different experiences, and the thing that really, really aligns everyone together is that shared mission of I want to succeed. I'm a young person. I don't necessarily believe in the societal pressures that are put on us. So you have to go down this certain route. You can only start reaching your goals when you're 25, 30, 40. No, I want to do things now. That's the shared mission that everyone really shares, and that's why developing that strength in the community, has been a success. We in the years since starting. So we've been since last June we started. We've got a community now of around 2,500 members in total in terms of our current apprentice community. And again, it's through that social aspect as well as personal branding. How to communicate, how to showcase your body posture. It's all these small things that you're not necessarily going to know unless you know it. In all honesty, being so young, you're not put in front of those experiences, especially people coming from disadvantaged backgrounds. And just in general, I think young people aren't given that career support. And that there's obviously a lot of companies and there's a lot of the support now that's going into it. But there's still that backlog of students who haven't had that experience at all, including myself.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the folks who are going to be kind of watching or listening to this, who are careers professionals, and in many cases providing or attempting to provide that type of support in schools or colleges or other settings, would absolutely agree with you. I think long been recognition that there's not enough. We want to see more of this type of thing, particularly, as you say, when it comes to that kind of rules of the game stuff, that actually, how do you know about this unless you've been through it? And who's the community that's supporting you? Sabir, I think you wanted to come in there as well.
I did want to come into that because there's several things that are sort of kind of popping in my head as Romario was sharing his experiences, but also the experiences of the community that he has so successfully built, that will also be probably in the minds of our viewers today as well. And the first question is, because obviously apprenticeships now have been opened up, it's not just about school leavers. So is the support that you provide age restricted, or can anybody of any age who's doing an apprenticeship gain support, guidance, and access to the things that you are doing? So that's my sort of kind of first question, because I know the audience will be wondering that. They'll then say to me after the show, why didn't you ask him this question? So I might as well ask you that question now.
Of course, and obviously great question to call out. Not unfortunately, just the way that we run our community, especially on that in-person aspect, and just that community sense of everyone going for a similar challenge and experiences of going from school to apprenticeships. Again, that abruptness is a big change in dynamics of your life, and a big thing that we've really called out is having people of a similar age. Unfortunately, in that sense, just due to that lack of support, being 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, there is just that big misconnect in terms of support from that age. That's a big thing as to why we've kind of gone into that space. But our online support, our online webinars that we do are for everyone and anyone. In all honesty, it's just more in-person events in the community as a whole in general. But again, the online sessions, the in-person sessions are limited in all honesty. But it's we are trying to improve. We are trying to expand as we go forward as well.
And do you know what, Romario? I admire and respect that, because you found a problem and you're now putting solutions to that problem. And you've got to start somewhere. And almost like I feel as if you're kind of saying, you're putting a shout out almost to people to say, hey, who else is in this space that would like to pick up the baton? Because it can't be done by one person. That you've talked consistently throughout today's podcast about sense of community, building, leveling people up, inspiring people, showing them the way, where they are sort of kind of fumbling around and they are sort of kind of feeling as if, oh my God, I'm in this dark tunnel. It feels so overwhelming, so isolating. Like you say, that culture shock of working in a very adult environment, particularly if you're in industries where you're the only young person there. And you're surrounded by just sort of like very older adults, mature adults, people who've been in industry for many, many years. We forget, I sometimes forget and have to remind myself, okay, Samir, you've been in industry for a long time now. If there's someone new that's fresh face that's coming in, you have to sort of kind of give them a bit of a runway to sort of kind of practice and get their head around some of the things that, someone like Chris and I would just take for granted now. So, I think it's a great sort of piece of work that you are doing, and the fact that you've got, you know, several thousands of people that you are now supporting and guiding along this journey is just phenomenal. So if you folks of you that are listening today, if you're being inspired and you want to help, I'm sure Romario would be keen. And I know, Chris, we've got some follow-up questions in terms of where and signposting of where people can go.
Yeah, I think as always, we're kind of rapidly coming to the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
Always happens this way, and we could, as you rightly noted, Romario, we could probably talk about this for 2-3 hours at least. But I guess if we've got kind of viewers and listeners who've been listening to the podcast today, and really sort of, as Sabir said, been inspired by what you're talking about, or just kind of curious to find out about the work you're doing at OuterCircle, where's the best place for them to find you? And I guess have you got anything coming up that we might want to keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate for having this platform to shout out a few of the things that we're up to, in all honesty. Towards the start of the academic year, there's a lot of things that we're going to start introducing even more. But for this summer as a whole, a big thing that we're really trying to do, and this is actually something I haven't called out yet, in all honesty, we're going to be launching an apprenticeship-ready interview sessions. So again, going to that perspective of working with employers and recruitment and things like that. So it's a big challenge that a lot of employers are having, whether they're large or small, is that quality. And that quality challenge is, in honesty, just due to the fact that students aren't being prepared for that journey. And it's not necessarily their fault. That's where we come in, obviously, with what we're doing anyways on that social element and social mobility aspect, is supporting students to make sure that they are apprenticeship ready. And what we're doing is we're calling out those who are apprenticeship ready. And for those who aren't, we're making sure that they work towards that apprenticeship ready level. So that's something that we're going to be doing this summer, is conducting interviews, coaching, obviously more events, more sessions. So in terms of signposted ways to find out where you can find us and things in that sense, we are this week or potentially early next week relaunching our website. So we've been refurbishing or redoing our website to make sure that it's tailored to what we are doing now and moving forward. So our website will be out within the next week, fingers crossed. But in terms of right now and when the podcast gets launched, our signposted links, so I'll be able to send over our link to join the aspiring apprentice community, link to join the current apprentice community, and as well as that, our company email. If any companies, teachers, careers, people working in the careers field wants to get in contact with us to see how we can collaborate, because we worked with multiple companies before, multiple apprenticeship providers, and a lot more, fingers crossed, in the next couple of months and in the future as well.
I have no doubt that will be the case, Romario. And the great thing about pre-recording these podcasts is by the time this goes out, the website will definitely be live. So if you have been listening to this, if you check the episode notes in Spotify and the description on the YouTube video, you will find all of the links in there that we're talking about. So the link to the new OuterCircle website, registration link that Romario mentioned, contact details, Romario's LinkedIn. If you want to kind of reach out, if you want to get in touch and see if you can collaborate and support the work that OuterCircle are doing. So that brings us really nicely to the end of the podcast. So Romario, just very briefly, a massive thank you from Sabir and I for joining us today. It's been great. I think we could have definitely talked for a lot longer. And actually, it's a really nice lead-in to our next podcast, which is going to be with Laurie Stewart from Mindless Academy. And we're going to be talking all about the graduate mindset, which is their kind of early career graduate community that they've been building within the organization. So a really nice segue, not intended, but we got there anyway. So that's really all for this week, folks. So I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. Do keep kind of tuning in both on Spotify and on YouTube, and we will see you all in the career sphere next time around. See you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.